Oh my God, I just totally got catfished. He looks absolutely nothing like his picture.
So I found out the guy that I've been dating is married with kids. His wife just reached out to me.
Welcome to the Meat Market. The single scene is a slaughterhouse, and we are here to devour it. We are your hosts. I'm Lindsay.
I'm Jess.
And today's sizzling single is Steve. Welcome.
How you doing?
So you are one of the top divorce attorneys in Scottsdale. I want to hear, what do you think is the number one reason why people are getting divorced?
Well, I don't know about top, but
In our eyes, you're the top.
yeah, exactly for today. Today, people are just they get angry with each other. We deal with a lot of narcissistic parents, and those people are really difficult to deal with.
So what makes someone narcissistic? What are the qualities?
You know, they're always right. Everything they do is perfect, and you can't do enough for them. And so anything you do is not satisfactory, and you've got to live up to their expectations, and you've got to be perfect. And that's hard in today's society. There's a lot of pressures on parents, a lot of pressures on people, financial pressures, and it's hard. It's hard to keep people happy.
I feel like this is very much like a hot button word. Like
Right.
people, do you see a lot of people that you believe are actual, like true narcissists?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Because
okay.
when we get them, they're a gold mine. Because they keep it going. They keep the litigation going. They're never wrong.
Interesting.
And they use the lawyer as a battering ram. And they just keep pushing it and just, they just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And they never stop. And you try to talk them out of it because at some point it becomes counterproductive and silly. Mm-hmm. But they just keep going.
So you must love the narcissist. Ching, ching, bling, bling.
Exactly. Somebody's got to
paying your mortgage, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you want to go buy somebody a nice bag, I mean, you got to have a few narcissists in there.
Would you say typically it's the males who are the narcissists, or do you have females as well who are the narcissists?
We have both, but I would say primarily males.
Yeah.
Primarily males. Yeah, they are the ones who, you file for divorce against a narcissist, and you're going to suffer because they're going to just keep going. They don't want to get a divorce because they didn't do anything wrong. They're perfect, and so you're gonna be in for a battle, unfortunately.
Wow.
So through your work, through all these cases, do you see a lot of crazy stuff?
Oh yeah. It's it seems to get crazier and crazier every year. People are getting more and more desperate, especially because of financial pressures. And, the housing market, if you look back, we're 2025, you look back 5 years, you had the COVID situation. And people, they stayed at home, they yelled at each other. All of a sudden, they got to deal with this person who they're married to, and they got to see him 24/7, and they get sick of him. I didn't marry this person. So then you come out of that, and we're in this weird housing market. And so people that bought their houses in 2018, 2019, 2020, they got these great mortgages. They got excellent, amazing payments on their houses. And now, you're thinking, I want to get a divorce, but where am I going to live? Mm-hmm, how am I going to get a house? How am I going to get a payment like that? And so they stay together. And so that's where we're at right now. People are kind of staying together. They're afraid to leave because it's so hard to make it out there right now. It's just daunting.
It is daunting.
Yeah.
The housing market, it's crazy expensive. So did you see a spike in clients after COVID?
During COVID, there was a massive spike, and it spread around the world just like the disease spread. Yeah. And we could see it, that, it was big in every single country in the world, and it just spread, and it came to the United States, and it was just wild, absolutely wild. We couldn't file fast enough.
Dang.
Wow.
Yeah, because people just, they were living with this person that they could put up with them for a few hours, but stay with them for 24 hours, they couldn't deal with it.
And that has to make it hard because of the pandemic, it was hard to go, see houses because people weren't doing anything in public.
Right.
And you were probably doing a lot of your interviewing and things via Zoom and via video call. Did it make it difficult? More difficult?
It was the opposite.
It was the opposite?
It turned the job into something you could actually tolerate. Because, when people are so frustrated and pissed off and you got to meet with them, it's tough. They're angry and they're difficult, but when you're just on a video or you're on the phone with them, it's easy.
That's true. You didn't have to deal with them in person.
Right. And then we stopped doing hearings. We started doing hearings from video. So we could sit there and I did a hearing recently where I had my shirt, tie, and my shorts.
That was awesome.
And my kid comes walking in at 3:30, and he starts doing this weird dance around the room, and I don't know what he was doing. It was a little odd. And so the other attorney and the judge are saying, what is your kid doing? What kind of dance is that? And then the dog starts barking, and I have to get up, and they see my shorts. So it's just it was a disaster. But it was very funny. They enjoyed it. So
That's hilarious.
So yeah, it's an easier job when you're doing video because you can handle a lot more work, and you don't have to come out of your house.
That's true. That's
Yeah,
nice.
That's true.
so it's a benefit.
So do you see a lot of infidelity in marriages?
Yeah, infidelity it's just out of control because, I remember, because I've been doing this a long time, I remember when people got on AOL and they got in these chat rooms. Mm-hmm. And, guys would come to me and say, she's in that chat room again. And I know she's doing something in that chat room. And now all of a sudden, it's they pick up their phone and on Facebook, they can see the people they knew in high school that are all of a sudden single. Mm-hmm. And so it's so easy to, back out of a marriage these days. It's so easy to see that person that you always wanted to be with, and then all of a sudden the marriage is over just like that. And I think the sign for a lot of guys is if you're not showing up in those Facebook pictures,
It's true.
That's a warning sign.
Yeah.
Or if you change your profile picture of just
Right.
you, not your family.
Yeah.
Right, you got to watch that Facebook thing.
How often do people bring social media like screenshots to you to use in divorce?
It's actually,
cases?
we're actually taught that we have to look at it now.
Really?
Yeah, because it's malpractice not to. You have to look at what's going on. That's how you find out about, if you got a potential client that calls you and says, I'm this, that, and the other, and I'm a perfect person and I want the kids all the time. And then you look up their Facebook profile and, they got pictures of themselves passed out, drinking, bottles everywhere. And, that's stuff that's going to come up. So you got to sanitize that Facebook page. You got to clean that up.
Yeah.
Sanitize the
Yeah.
Facebook page.
Yeah, it's nasty out here.
That's crazy.
So would
Yeah.
you say the cheaters, are they men or women, or is it 50-50?
I see a lot of women cheaters.
Really?
An awful lot of women cheaters.
What? That's crazy to me.
I have a good friend that
Yeah.
when they got divorced because she was sleeping with her personal trainer.
Personal trainers is a that's a
Is a
pretty
big
common
one.
thing.
Is it pretty common, especially in Scottsdale, or is
Oh,
it
yeah.
common everywhere? Have you worked in other parts of the
Oh
country?
yeah, no, just here. But I
okay.
mean, the personal trainer thing is a big deal.
Is it?
Yeah, because they get that personal trainer going, and it's history.
Uh-huh.
You're done. That and the massage therapist.
That's
You know,
funny.
yeah,
That's funny.
It's bad news.
So I have this list of the professions most likely to cheat.
Right.
So nurses and medical staff. I know
yeah.
doctors are so bad at cheating with the nurses, right?
Doctors are the worst.
They are.
Yeah, doctors are the worst because they're on call. They're at the hospital all night, and they're under a lot of pressure. And those nurses come in and they're all all dressed up. They got the makeup going. They got the gown. I mean, it's bad. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's bad.
And then secretaries and assistants. I actually have a friend and her husband left her for his secretary.
Yeah, that happens.
You hear that a
Wow.
lot.
I do feel you see that a lot on like TV shows and movies. I feel like, and so it's almost like it has to be modeled after real life,
Oh,
right?
yeah. But when
Yeah.
you getting back to the doctors, those are the narcissists.
Really?
Oh yeah. Big
Okay,
time.
the
Yeah.
ego
Ego
complex
is
a
out of
little
control.
bit. Yeah.
Out of control.
Why is that?
I don't know because I think
Because
maybe
a lot of doctors I know are like that.
Oh yeah.
they think they are playing God or,
Oh, yeah,
or
sure.
whatever.
They
yeah.
run the ship. Yeah.
They're well educated. They're in control. They got a lot of money, and typically they're making
Yeah.
pretty good money.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but
Yeah.
yeah.
The third one is, of course, flight crew and flight attendants. My husband's a pilot.
Yeah, yeah. Those are.
But
are
you
really
hear
bad.
about pilots all the time cheating with their
Mm-hmm.
flight attendants.
Oh
and-
yeah. That's
yeah.
That goes without saying.
So every time my husband is like, "Oh, my flight's delayed," or "I got called into work," I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
"Did you really get called
Did you
into
really get called?
work?"
Yeah, exactly.
Is that her name now? Work.
yeah, exactly.
Convenient.
Yes,
Let me,
right?
let me put on your tracker here.
Yeah. And the last one is fitness and yoga instructors. So like personal trainers.
That's pretty bad too. Because and part of that is people are competing to see if they can lose the weight, if they're looking good, and that's another source of cheating. People start getting on those medications, the GLP medications, and they lose a lot of weight, and all of a sudden they're looking great. They're competing to see what's out there, and
They're getting
and then you got a
attention.
divorce. Oh yeah, they're getting a lot of attention all of a sudden.
Yeah,
'Cause those-
I have a girlfriend who I'd never heard of this before, but I have a girlfriend who has had multiple happy endings from massages from male
From men?
masseuses.
Wow.
Yes.
How does that work? Like,
Yes.
That's
the
interesting.
fingers, like
Yeah.
the hands?
Yeah. Yeah. And I've asked her before, I'm like, you must do something because I get massages a lot and I've never had it happen where
Wow.
the masseuse goes in for the happy ending. I've never. So I'm like, you must be doing
Right?
something. You must be like
Yeah.
wiggling a certain way or like
I've
pushing
always
your ass out a certain way. Like
Yeah.
when they're there.
I've always wondered that. Like, how do they make the first move? Because that seems
I
like it's a
don't
slippery
know.
slope.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So it is a thing.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, do you have a lot of issues with prenups? Like, you know, these gold diggers or money hungry women that, you know, marry these guys for money, then they're getting divorced, and have any ugly stories there?
I don't see as much of that. I see a little bit of it, but not as much. I mean, a lot of times guys just, you know, they don't do the prenup. People need to do more prenups because they, you know, you don't want to get someone like me messing around with your personal life when you're just dividing up money. And it can get really sticky. And so it's just so easy to get the prenup done, get it out of the way, and then just avoid a lot of this crap. You know, but yeah, we see a lot of that, a lot of gold diggers, and especially now when, you know, people want what they want. You know, they expect to get certain things. They want the nice car, they want the boat, they want the vacations. And so, and there's a smaller and smaller pool of people that can do that. You know, there's just very few people in this economy that can support that kind of demand. So yeah, so a lot of women are out there looking for that guy.
And I feel like prenups, traditionally, right? It's the men are protecting their assets,
Right.
their money, and the women feel like it's an insult, like you just think I'm a gold digger and I'm after your money. So I've heard too of like the infidelity clause that goes into a prenup. How solid is that? If that's what the woman is afraid of, well, I don't want you to have all, you know, I feel like I should get something if there's infidelity. How solid is that?
Well, we don't really get into fault. You know, that
Okay.
gets into the, you know, there are marriages that we can do in which fault is an issue, but those are very rare. So we try to steer clear of that.
Okay.
The court doesn't want to get into try to proving fault. They just don't want to get into that nastiness. But I mean, you know, if you want a divorce, you can get a divorce typically, unless you enter into a specific type of marriage, which is extremely rare. Short of that, you know, if somebody feels like somebody's cheating on them or emotionally cheating, I mean, that's a large part of it is when somebody is emotionally cheating and they're just out of the picture. You know, they're not communicating with you. They're not enjoying your presence. They don't want to be with you. And you can tell right away. It's like, who wants that? You know, and that's the tough part is when that's going on, you got to get out of that thing.
Yeah.
You know, when there's kids, it's more complicated. You got to work on it. But if there's no kids and that person is emotionally out of there, you know, why hang out with that?
Right.
You know, why put up with that?
So, what is the craziest or ugliest thing that you've seen?
I've seen some pretty weird stuff.
Can you share?
Well, I've seen situations where we've had a few brothers who each brother took their turn with the first brother's woman. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
And
somebody just killed somebody in my neighborhood like
I heard of that,
3
yeah.
weeks ago. The man's wife was sleeping with his brother. So he went to the brother's house
Right.
and shot and killed him.
What?
Ooh, I didn't see
Yeah.
that.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah,
he in
this
jail
was-
now?
I don't know.
I mean, it wasn't murder suicide.
No,
No.
I think
Got
he maybe would have killed his
Yeah.
wife too if she would have been there. I have no idea.
Dang, that's
I
crazy.
I saw the headline. I haven't followed up with the story, but
Yeah.
it's crazy.
We had another situation where someone was, and we can't mention specifically what happened, but you see these situations where someone's having an affair, and it turns out that person happens to be the father of all of this person's children. So there were
Wow.
affairs going on for years with the same person.
Wow.
Yeah, so
That's
we see
and the
that.
spouse didn't
crazy.
know.
Spouse, yeah, spouse didn't know.
Can you
Wow.
imagine if you found out that none of your children were yours?
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
That would literally drive you crazy.
Yeah. So we see a lot of that. We see a lot of relationship, affairs going on, and then there's a kid born in the middle of the relationship when someone's married. So that gets a little tricky. So yeah, I mean, people do some really awful things.
Yeah.
So tell us about you. Where are you from originally?
They're here, actually.
You're from born and raised here?
Yeah.
Great. And have you been married before? Tell us about your past relationship history.
I was married for a relatively short period of time, and I have 2 kids. So I'm a little bit, for the age of my kids, I'm a little older. But it's fun being a single parent. I mean, I've got a 12-year-old and a 17-year-old daughter, and that's a little challenging. But because I'm older, I tend to kind of spoil her a little more, and so she likes that. Obviously, everybody likes to be spoiled. And the 12-year-old, we have a lot of fun. And I cook for them, I clean, I do all these things. I'm the mother and the father, and I kind of enjoy it.
Are they with you 100% of the time?
No, half the time.
50-50?
Half the time, yeah.
Did you represent yourself in your divorce?
No. You represent yourself. That's what they call having a fool for a client. So, so yeah,
funny.
yeah. So you don't want to do that, and judges don't like that.
No.
I'm sure.
Yeah, they definitely don't like to see that.
So have you dated much since your divorce?
Yes,
Yeah?
yeah, a fair
No.
amount.
What's the longest relationship since?
It was a few years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind me asking, why did that end?
I'm still wondering about that.
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're able to more easily, like, sniff out the red flags because of what you do?
You can, but it's easy to sniff out the flags, but it's also easy to ignore them.
It is.
Yeah.
And so if something is going and it's good and you like it and there are red flags, sometimes we don't learn from our own mistakes.
It's like Simon said, blinded by the blue eyes. In
Oh,
a
yeah.
man's case, blinded by the boobs.
Exactly, or the boobs. Yeah, exactly. It's tough. It's tough being. You get older and you put up with maybe a little more. You know more, so you shouldn't do that, but sometimes you do it, and and that's when you pay for it. Because you know better.
It's true.
Yeah.
Are you looking to get married again? Looking for a long-term partner? What are you looking for?
I don't know. I kind of want a long-term partner, but it's so hard. It's so hard, and people's expectations are so high. People don't want to divert their attention from all their little addictions they've got going on. Whether it's YouTube or Instagram or all the things that they need and want. And relationships require compromise. You have to do things that you don't necessarily want to do. So as you get older, you get less tolerant about things like that. And so you got to find someone who's willing to put up with that, and then you have to be willing to put up with that too. So it gets a little tougher as we get older.
And I feel like if you've done your own thing for so long and
Right.
you've been independent for so long, it's hard to kind of, Yeah.
And nowadays everybody's working so hard to make it work. I mean, things are so expensive. And so people are working long hours and they've got 2-3 jobs sometimes. And so to find the time to go out there and date, it's tricky, and it really is. And so, and a lot of people, like I said, because of the housing market, they're staying in these relationships longer. And so there's, in some ways there's fewer, potential mates out there sometimes. So that's kind of what we're all dealing with.
So what are your deal breakers in a woman?
I think if there's, anger issues, I certainly don't like that. Somebody who's controlling, because I don't want to be controlled. And I mean, I'm pretty laid back. I'm pretty relaxed. I put up with a lot, but at the same time, I just don't want to be told what to do. I want everybody to compromise and everybody to work on their own issues and just have fun. Just try to do things and have fun. I like to go shopping, believe it or not. It's kind of odd.
Ooh, the women are going to like that out there.
yeah,
You
I
like to
really-
go shopping, girls.
Yeah, I love to go shopping.
It's a magic word in Scottsdale.
Yeah,
Panty dropper.
yeah. I like the beach. I like to travel. But, mainly I like people who are relaxed, who are not too intense. And that's a challenge.
Now describe your ideal partner, personality and physical.
I think someone who I exercise a lot, someone who exercises, that's a big deal for me. Someone who is fairly healthy, who eats fairly well, someone who is relatively educated, who can carry on a conversation. Those are the main things. And if they come to me and say, I don't want to deal with your kids, I don't want to talk to your kids, I don't want to share attention with children, that's not going to work.
I know women like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Your kids are young, you said?
17 and
How old are-
12.
Oh, 17 and 12. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So old enough to sort of take care of themselves
Oh, yeah.
for a few
they do
hours.
their
And
own
the
thing.
17-year-old. Yeah.
They do their own
Yeah.
thing. The 17-year-old she gets a little jealous sometimes.
Yeah.
But I get it. I mean, it's when you're in a divorce situation and you're with each parent half time, you want to make sure that half time you're getting that attention, you know? So that's a big deal.
I was gonna say, do you want more kids?
No.
Or are you done?
No, I'm done. Yeah, I can't, you know, it's like you get to a certain age and you don't want to chase kids around.
Exactly.
Change diapers. and-
Yeah, changing
Potty
diapers.
training.
Yeah, I've done enough of that.
So do you have any crazy first date stories or disaster date stories?
You know, I had somebody who was telling me that they were a spy or they were in the CIA.
What? Were they a
And-
spy? Were they in the CIA?
Well, and it sounded believable, and then they started talking about they were on the border of North and South Korea, and I asked them, well, were you in the demilitarized zone? And they said, well, what is that? So, it's like, I mean, come on. I mean, if you're going to talk about something, just study a little bit of the history.
Right? At least know the facts.
Yeah. So you know a little bit about it. I mean,
Fail.
yeah.
That's
So
funny.
that's like, I'm out of there.
Have you been catfished?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you on the dating apps for a while? Have you done
Yeah,
the
and that
apps?
there's
Yeah.
a lot of false stuff on there, a lot of fake stuff. I mean, half the advertisements on there are fake,
Yeah.
and it just gets so annoying because you just don't want to deal with it. And there's people out there who are trying to, grab the information from you and then use it against you, and that's just really annoying.
Why don't more people FaceTime before they meet up in person? Because there are so many catfishes out there.
Right.
Why don't you FaceTime? That would solve everything,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You would think so.
I would want to be sure that I'm not going to waste my time and meet someone that's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what they try to do is it's like you have to have a whole closet full of these potential dates on your app before you do anything, and so it just gets old because
Yeah.
people just they're not serious about it. So you just it's like you don't want to pay attention.
It
to
is. It kind of becomes like a game. I feel
It
like,
really is.
like you were talking about, like the addictions to
Right.
the phone and the social media and stuff. I feel like people that spend a lot of time on dating apps, it becomes almost like an addiction. They're
Right.
addicted to swiping,
Right.
to seeing what's out there, to seeing what's coming next, like the thrill of getting the matches,
Oh, yeah.
and things like that, where there's no actual intention
No.
to date or to meet somebody. It's just they're addicted to the thrill of seeing what's next or
Right,
seeing what's
yeah.
out
I mean,
there.
you can be on a
whatever.
date with someone and you hear that ding going off like constantly, ding,
Oh,
ding, ding,
so
and it's
annoying.
like, and it's like, what am I here for? Should I just go
yeah.
home?
Yeah.
I mean, it gets annoying.
So do you have any crazy talents or unique facts about yourself that not many people know?
Wow.
It's a loaded question. Can you
Ye-
sing or?
Yeah, no,
No?
I mean, I've learned how to cook. I know how to select a purse. I know what to look for there.
What's your go-to purse
I
to
was
buy?
just gonna
I
say,
thi-
what's your favorite thing to cook? What's your go-to purse? I was
Yeah.
just saying, what's your favorite?
So I mean, yeah. So I've learned about that kind of thing. I do a lot of shopping. I'm used to going to Sephora a lot because I got a 17-year-old. So, I do those kind of things, and I don't mind doing it. I kind of like it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So it's that's kind of unique, I guess.
And what is your go-to thing to cook?
Grilling stuff like
Yeah,
that.
okay.
Typical guy stuff.
Wow, so he likes to cook, ladies. He
Yeah.
likes to shop. He's a
Bake.
winner right here. He
I
likes
do
to bake.
Yeah.
What?
Oh yeah. I'm good at baking too.
You like
yeah.
to bake buns?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Are you ready for it?
I'm ready for it. The Keep More Minute, sponsored by Tactical Tax Strategies. They help you keep more in your wallet. We help you keep more in your relationship. So we have a listener question.
Yes.
Do you want this one?
Oh, you do this one. I'll do this one after. This was a last-minute submission
Okay.
from someone from Facebook.
I know that's fine. Like, do you want me to
Yeah.
do the original one or should we do
Both.
the new one? We do
Yeah.
both? Okay. All right. This week's question. My boyfriend and I have a great relationship, except for one tiny issue. He eats all of my fries every single time. It doesn't matter if I order my own, he still reaches over like some kind of food bandit. When I confront him, he just laughs and says sharing is caring. But when I try to take a bite of his food, suddenly it's, why didn't you order your own? Is this a red flag? Am I overreacting, or is this the kind of behavior that leads to bigger betrayals like stealing the blankets or worse, watching our favorite show without me? Please help before I start ordering extra just to survive.
I don't know. I'm not a big fry person. So
But if she's dating a taker, not a giver, right? I feel like relationships are give and take. You can't expect to constantly take from someone and then you're not willing to give.
It's true, but I feel like that's too deep. Like I like to share food.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
when I go to a restaurant with somebody,
I'm the
like
same, yeah.
like I get annoyed if I'm out with somebody, even if it's like a friend or a parent or something, like, and we all order the same thing.
Yeah.
Because I like let's order one of everything so that we can try everything and we'll all share and eat off the same plate. I don't think it's as deep as if someone's eating your fries, they're not going to be a giver in the relationship. Because like for me, if I'm out to eat, I'm like, ooh, can I try that off of your plate? Because I like to eat.
Yeah. I'm all about sharing food too.
Yeah.
I'll show you mine if you show me yours. Like try a bit of each. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, at least they're engaging with you.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little bit of a silly thing to worry about. So then, maybe just have a conversation and be like, let's order a community fries and then order a couple other things. So that we can try more than one. Thing.
More
I mean, he could be on his
know?
phone looking up the calorie counter and saying you shouldn't be eating fries.
Exactly. I think it could be worse.
Yeah,
I
it
think
could be much worse.
There could be worse issues to have.
Yeah.
Oversharing meals.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So someone from Facebook saw that we had a divorce attorney on today, and they have a question. Erica, I've been married for 13 years, and he's a narcissist, and I'm financially dependent. What is my best strategy in getting divorced?
So the laws changed substantially over the past year. And now we deal with spousal maintenance. We used to get spousal maintenance, but we didn't get it as much. And it was really hard to get courts to award it. And now we have guidelines. So you can go on the Maricopa.gov website, look up spousal maintenance guidelines, and plug your numbers right in. And you can find out, to a rough extent, what you're going to get. So you know when you divorce that, hey, at least I'm going to get this amount. So in 13 years, you're going to get a decent amount depending on how much you earn. So it's not going to be that bad. But yeah, nowadays, I mean, it's so hard to make it out there. So, I mean, especially if you've got a house, you're going to have to sell the house. Then you got to find a rental. And rentals are going to be twice as much as your house payment. So yeah, it's tough. It's tough in any situation.
I was in Florida recently and I met this couple I went out for sushi and I was eating and this couple was sitting next to me at the sushi bar. And it was so interesting because I had made a comment about your husband or your wife or whatever, assuming that they were married, right? And then they started telling me, no, we're not married. So his ex-wife was in this high power executive somewhere. And when they ended up getting divorced, she paid him spousal maintenance. So he's been getting these payments and I think he said he has 2 years left on them. And he's like, I am not allowed to be in a marriage-like relationship or my spousal payments stop. So they live separately. They don't live together. They don't get married. None of that. But like he has a great job. He owns a landscaping company, all this and that. But his ex-wife made substantially more money than him. And now he's very happy and he's married again, but they're not married. It was so interesting. I couldn't believe it.
I bet the woman paying this money is furious.
Well,
fuming.
No, he said no. He said no. He said neither one of them want to take each other back to court because this was... they got divorced 10 years ago or something like that. And so he goes, if we go back to court and they find out how much more she's making now than she was back then, she will owe me more money for the next. So they both have their like secrets that they're keeping from the courtroom. But I was like, I just thought that was so interesting because you always hear it the other way around, right? You always hear it, the man is having to pay the wife spousal support. But in this, I just thought it was so interesting.
Yeah, it can work both ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't have too much fun if you've got that maintenance going in.
Exactly. And that was exactly his point. You know, we go out of town to travel. They were from the Midwest, but like I said, I met them at a sushi restaurant in Florida. So it was just like, you know, we travel and we don't post pictures online and we each keep our separate addresses. You know, I don't have any of my mail sent to his house. He doesn't have any of his mail sent to mine. Like it was crazy.
They sanitized their Facebook.
They have sanitized their Facebook
you
for
gotta
sure.
really clean it up.
For sure.
So this article, 10 truly scary divorce facts, and I wanted to get your opinion on these. So the first one, living together before marriage increases your chance of divorce. People are getting married later in life now, so they live together before getting married. They consider it like a test run to see if they're, you know, compatible. But in reality, couples who live together before getting married actually are more susceptible to divorce in the long run. Is that true?
I don't know. That's a good question. I would say most people who I deal with who are going through a divorce did live together at some point.
Because I feel like though nowadays, like, I don't know if I want to get married with someone that you've never lived with before.
Yeah.
That's kind of scary, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, they could be doing things. They could, somebody could snore really loudly, or maybe they get up and they have these nightmares and they start running around the. I mean, you don't know what they're like.
Or if they're really messy and you're really clean, you know.
Yeah. Scary, but statistics don't lie, I guess. So the second one, the average marriage is shorter than you think. The average length is about the 8-year mark, because that's long enough to do things like have kids, get a house, get through the initial honeymoon phase, but it's also long enough to try to make it work.
Right.
So does that sound right to you, about 8 years?
It sounds actually a little long.
Really?
I would say here it's probably shorter.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say among the more sophisticated populations, it's probably a little longer. But here, I would guess it's a little shorter than that.
I just celebrated my 8th-year anniversary with my husband, so we just got to the 8-year mark.
Wow.
Hopefully, we can make it past the 8 years.
Yeah, so you got to be real careful over the next 365 days.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm in the danger zone now.
Oh, yeah.
So first divorces happen young. As people live longer, healthier lives, the number of people who marry multiple times has increased. Though some people do put off getting married until a later age, the average age is 30 years old to get married for the first time.
Wow.
And then people grow and change in your 20s. Once they reach 30, couples often realize that they want different things. And so it's time to go their separate ways.
Right.
Someone once made a funny comment to me. They were like, I'm looking to date someone in their 30s, but I want a Nebraska 30, not a Scottsdale 30. Nebraska 30, they've been married, they've been divorced, they have kids. A Scottsdale 30-year-old guy doesn't even know how to cook a chicken. Yeah. And it's kind of true, like a Scottsdale 30 is different than like a Midwest 30, don't you think?
For sure. As somebody who grew up in the Midwest, yeah.
Is it different?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So happily married parents equal happy marriages. If your parents were happily married, statistically speaking, your likelihood of divorce drops. Watching a successful marriage not only shows you firsthand that it's possible, but also provides a roadmap to making things work. Is that true, do you think?
I mean, I would think so, but, we're so different now. And we've got, like I said, we've got so many addictions. We've got so many distractions. People, especially guys, get on their phones and they're on their phones 24/7. They're in TikTok, they're watching reels, they're watching videos. I mean, there's just so much to do, and that, it drags your attention away from your spouse. And so then the spouse gets jealous of the phone. But yeah, there are so many different things going on that.
But I feel like back in the olden days, when something was broken, you fixed it. You took the time to fix the marriage or to get past it. Nowadays, I feel people just like throw it in the trash and want the next new shiny toy.
Oh yeah, because I mean, the thing is, they have access to that list of potential mates. It's sitting there all the time, and there are people that they went to high school with or college with that they always wanted to be with, and suddenly they look on their phone and oh wow, they're available now, And so the second something goes wrong, they're out there. They're out of it.
That is true. It's the real people that are available, not just these imaginary people on social media and on dating apps, but they see the real people that they knew or know.
Yeah.
My husband made a comment that when he got divorced, he changed his profile pictures, obviously, and then he had so many of his women from his childhood reach out to him right away to, hey, how's it going? I can tell you're single now.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a problem.
Yeah. So parents aren't the only ones at risk. Children are susceptible to depression. Oh, sorry, I missed one. Health risks after divorce. A bad marriage is detrimental to mental health, but divorce also comes with an array of physical health concerns. After divorce, men have an elevated risk of hypertension, heart disease, even cancer. Depression, substance abuse, and obesity often spike after a marriage ends. Some studies show that men are more likely to commit suicide following a divorce. Is that true? Health concerns?
I think it can go both ways because, I know for myself, you tend to get lazy in a marriage sometimes. And especially if you're not happy, you tend to just not work out as much. You don't exercise as much. And you're not out there competing for attention. But when you're a single person, and especially in a town like Scottsdale where the sun's shining and, people are in the bars and they're looking, you've got to be in shape. You got to work out. And so you tend to get healthier sometimes.
Yeah,
that's
I have heard that too. Yeah. They say, I've read or seen reels that say, if you want to know whose fault the breakup was, look at which one stays stagnant and which one has the glow up.
Right.
Because likely the one who has the glow up is the one whose fault it was not.
Right.
Because they're the ones that have shed their stress and their weight and their and all of that all of that.
And they want the revenge body.
And they want the
Look what you're
Revenge
missing
body,
out
yeah.
on.
Oh, yeah, we see a lot of that.
Exactly.
We see a lot of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it can be
Both.
I think a
Yeah.
lot of people get change for the better and healthier after a breakup or after a divorce.
Yeah, that makes sense. So parents aren't the only ones at risk. Children are susceptible to depression and other mental health issues, which often manifest physically. One study found that children living with both parents tend to be much healthier physically than those hailing from broken homes. I wanted to ask you about this because I sat next to a divorce attorney on a flight to San Diego, and she was saying it's better for the kids to not be in a marriage when the parents don't get along. It's better for them to divorce. Is that true? Because we posted that clip on social media, and I got a lot of hate from people saying, that's not true. Of course, a divorce attorney is going to say that because they want the business. That's like going to a car salesman, and he telling you that you don't need a new car. Him telling you don't need a new car. So is that true?
I'll tell you, when you see some of the fighting that I've seen, some of the anger that is displayed openly in front of a 6 or 7-year-old, the screaming, the alienation, the people enmeshing themselves with a kid, where they're having adult conversations with a child about the other parent and how the other parent is not acting appropriately. It is abusive and it's dangerous, it's destructive. And that child grows up thinking that's normal. So you can't. So in those situations, it's not good for these people to stay together. And for a kid to see that, to grow up with that, it's just, your heart breaks because you see it and you see the kids saying, daddy or mommy, please stop. Please stop yelling at daddy. Please stop yelling at mommy. And you hear it and it's so abusive, And so those are situations that have to end. The kid cannot continue to be exposed to that.
And I think that's the most important thing to remember is that those children will grow up thinking that that kind of love is normal or like that kind of relationship, like that's what love means. And it's not. And then and then they get into the same type of relationship and then it just goes down
or they
the
pick,
line.
They want a spouse who's abusive. They expect to be abused by their spouse. They expect to be yelled at, to be screamed at, to be dictated to. And so they pick another person like that. And then they have another destructive, marriage. So I think there are marriages where there's just no way that they should continue to exist.
Yeah.
And then sometimes people just stay in them because either they're financially dependent or, the narcissist situation where they think that they have to stay in it, that there's nothing else out there. And those two situations, there needs to be a divorce. But then there's other people that, they fight over really stupid things. I remember somebody, and this was going back about 20 years, we used to go to Mexico and get these big bottles of vanilla. They used to come in these big bottles. And then you go to the grocery store and there's a little bottle of vanilla. And I remember somebody coming in, and I remember they had 2 sets of twins. And the guy just went crazy because the wife was making cookies and using the little bottle of vanilla. And that was over the top for him. So he's like, okay, I'm out of here. I got to get a divorce. So, I mean,
Wow.
Yeah. So, I see some really dumb reasons for divorce too. Or, there's people get in one fight or they're not getting everything they need. They didn't take that extra vacation during the summer or they didn't get the Louis Vuitton for Christmas, and it's like, okay, well, my friend got one and so I'm out of here. So that you see that too, especially in Scottsdale.
What? You see that?
Oh, yeah.
My friend got a Louis and I didn't. I'm out of here. Peace out. What? I'm going to find a guy that's going to buy me a Louis for my birthday and for Christmas.
I didn't get the new bag that came with it, because it has to go in the bag too. It's like, if you didn't, then what, did you get this off of Facebook Marketplace?
Oh my gosh.
So we see that too. And I mean, that's pretty bad.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So people are pretty spoiled.
So the next one I found very interesting. Women file for most divorces. 70% of divorces are filed by women. And when both are educated, that jumps up to 90%.
Right.
That's true?
Oh, yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Some argue it's for custody reasons, but others say it's due to society expectations, that women are expected to work like they have no children and parent like they have no job. The women are expected to do everything, remember birthdays, do the shopping, cooking, cleaning, and work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's women going through divorce. I mean, nowadays it's a little better because the change in spousal maintenance, but they're typically going to come up on the lower end of it. They're gonna, because typically they didn't get their career started, or the husband is further into his career, he's making more money, and so the husband is going to come out generally better. Women have a tough time in divorce.
Well, and they say, like, the phrase, it's cheaper to keep her. So it's like, I think most men probably do feel that way. Like, the divorce is going to cost me so much money. So I know we need a divorce, but I'm just going to wait until she files.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And a lot of them don't want to deal with the emotional impact of it.
Yes.
They just don't want to, they know they want a divorce, so they kind of check out emotionally, but they don't want to file and incur that wrath.
Yeah.
So
another couple last ones. According to one study, if one spouse smokes and the other doesn't, the couple is 75 to 91% likelier to get divorced. Interesting. That's high numbers, right?
But smoking is a deal breaker for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think some people overlook, like we talked about red flags, like a lot of people will overlook deal breakers and say, oh, it's okay.
Right.
I'll get them to quit eventually.
Right.
And then...
Or it could be addictions, could be drug addiction, it could be, addictions are very common nowadays. I mean, whether it's a behavioral, a substance, alcohol, I mean, it's one of the most common sources of friction in a relationship.
And smoking is an addiction.
Yeah. Big weddings equal big divorce rates. Research shows that couples who have huge, elaborate, expensive weddings are at greater risk for divorce. I have a friend that I think her dad spent over $60,000 on the wedding, and they didn't even last a year. I'd be pissed.
Wow.
I would be so mad.
Right?
Yeah, that would be nuts.
You're still paying it off after your divorce?
My dad,
exactly.
I'd never hear the end of it. Oh my God, I can imagine. I can hear my dad's voice in my head right now.
Or they take the wife's credit card, and the husband goes out and buys the ring with the wife's credit card.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll pay it. I'll pay on it, but they're in a divorce situation a year later.
Oh my gosh.
That sucks. You may want to move closer to work because a recent study has found that people with longer commutes 45 minutes or longer, are at a much higher risk of divorce. Isn't that kind of crazy?
Is it because they're spending less time
It's
at
hard
home
to work
together?
on your relationship stuck in your car, on a bus, or in a subway for half of the day.
I don't know about that.
I know, that just seems very odd.
I think that would be common in a place like LA.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Where you're
the
stuck in
stress.
traffic a lot, and then after an hour, it's like, where is he? What's he doing? Is he with the secretary?
Yeah. Here I've made dinner and he's not home
Yeah,
yet.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here I don't think we don't have that problem as much.
So this wasn't on the list, but I found this stat that I thought was very interesting. 56% of marriages end in divorce. And if you look at the remaining, 1/3 of those people are absolutely miserable.
Wow.
1/3 say, it's what it is. I'm too
Yeah.
lazy to get divorced. And only 1/3 say that they would do it again. So it's a 15% success rate. So the article states, if you were to go into a surgery and the surgeon said, you have 50% chance of a success rate, would you do the surgery?
15.
1-5, yeah.
Wow.
Wow, that
crazy
is
numbers,
that is
right?
not good.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah, I think you want to bury that statistic right there. That is not encouraging at all.
Anyways, that's it. Those are the 10 truly scary divorce facts.
Wow.
Yeah. That's crazy.
That is
I mean,
nuts.
I'm not surprised, but
Yeah.
it's...
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
now
not good.
Now it's time for the celebrity cut where we talk about the celebrities. So I
Yeah.
saw the title, Prince William is now choosing to use Princess Diana's divorce attorney. And my heart sank. I was like,
Wow.
Kate Middleton and Prince William are getting divorced? But no, they're not. Don't worry. He's choosing to use the lawyers that aren't affiliated with the royal family. So I guess the royal family always use the same attorneys, and he's
Yeah.
venturing out, and he's like, I'm going to be a big boy now. I'm going to choose my own lawyers.
Oh, good for him.
But would you need a divorce attorney if you're not planning on getting divorced?
Well, I think he probably practices other law as well. It was just the lawyer that represented Diana in her divorce.
I would be a little concerned about that.
Right?
yeah.
Because
Yeah,
do
that-
most divorce attorneys practice other types of
Typically,
law?
no.
I
Typically,
didn't
So
they
think
I
focus
wonder
on
if they
divorce.
are getting divorced and they don't want to release it just yet. That makes me scared.
Yeah, that's
Because
not
I
good.
love Kate Middleton.
Yeah, she's good.
Yeah, it'd be like going back to the doctor thing. It'd be like going to a cardiologist
Right.
for your
Now you're making me think.
something for a
Yeah,
knee
that-
replacement. Like
I would be
you know?
suspicious.
Yeah.
That would be unusual.
Yeah, interesting. I'll have
Yeah.
to keep my eye on it.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite place to go on a first date in town?
I like Le Grand Orange.
Oh, I love that place.
Yeah, that's a fun place. And then there's another place owned by the same company. I forget the name of it, but it's right down the street. That's a really nice place. I mean, sushi is great.
Chelsea's Kitchen.
Chelsea's Kitchen, yeah, that's
Oh
a
my
fun
God,
place.
that place
I like
is
Chelsea's
amazing.
That's a
Kitchen.
fun
Their
place.
patio with all the
Oh, yeah.
green.
Yes, I went on a brunch date there once years ago, and that was a great place
Yeah,
for a
the
for
drinks
a
are
date.
great. It's
Their
outdoor.
sangria.
Oh yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the tuna burger.
Oh my God.
Jackpot. Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
really good.
How do you feel about coffee dates? We've had a lot of people slam coffee dates, saying that it's a waste of a woman's time. How do you feel
You
about
know,
coffee
if you're
dates?
meeting someone for the first time, especially if it's, if it's somebody off one of these sites,
That's what we were saying.
and you've got a whole list of them, and it's like you don't want to sit there with someone and go out to eat with them if you're not too serious about it. And so it's good to have a coffee date to kind of get a feeling of get the feeling of the relationship and
Or
what
ice
it could be.
cream. I like Zoyo.
cream,
I
yeah.
like Zoyo for ice
Zoyo's
cream. Have you ever
amazing.
been?
I haven't been to that. I like Sweet Republic.
It's okay. Okay. Yeah, no, I like Zoyo because it's frozen yogurt and they have all the different toppings
Right.
to go on top.
That's a good
Yeah.
idea. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can get to know someone.
Yeah.
Like I shouldn't say I judge people based on the toppings that they put on their ice cream.
funny.
But like, what if
Yeah.
you get like weird toppings that
Yeah.
don't go together?
How funny. You see their
You
tops
know?
and you just leave.
Yeah. It's like,
Peace.
I want some chicken on.
But I think I would. I think I
Yeah.
would. I'd be like, I'm sorry, but those toppings don't go with
Yeah,
that flavor
exactly.
of ice
Or if
cream.
they don't put any toppings on
Or-
it at all, just vanilla.
Yeah.
Like, you're boring. Peace
Yeah.
out.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm outta here.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I feel like it could be a good test
It
to
could be a
someone's
good test.
personality.
Interesting. I've never heard of that.
Now
Yeah.
it's time for the juiciest segment of the
Okay.
show, the meat grab. Are you down for the challenge? Up for the grab? Willing to
Sure.
share? Pick one if you dare. Pick a card. Some questions are innocent, some are not so innocent. Pick at your own risk. Hopefully it's not vanilla like the classic vanilla bean.
Choose a movie title that best describes your sex life. Wow.
Oh, a movie title that best describes your sex life.
Huh. I don't know. That's a tough one.
Current sex life or sex life at its prime?
Yeah, I think it's sex like at its prime. Yeah. I don't know about that one. Huh. Movie title that best describes your sex life. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on that.
Do you have any that you can think of?
That's
That's
a
hard on the
weird one.
spot.
That is hard on the
You can
spot.
pick another one.
I'm
Let's pick
trying
another
to
one.
think.
Yeah.
I know. I'm trying to think of
Mine's
one.
like Lone Ranger right now.
What have you always wanted to try in the bedroom?
What is it?
What have you always wanted to try in the bedroom? Huh. Wow.
Didn't know you were going to get these types of questions.
Yeah, these are tough.
today,
They are
did ya?
tough. Yeah.
Huh.
Maybe have you tried it all?
Yeah, exactly. I tried it all. Yeah.
There's nothing new he needs to try.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've asked that question. Let's see.
Draw again.
What's the biggest age difference you've ever had with a partner?
Probably 10 years.
And you were older.
Yeah,
They were younger.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a preference? Do you like dating younger?
No,
women,
it doesn't
or
really
doesn't-
matter.
doesn't matter?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. I mean, I just want somebody who kind of takes care of themselves, somebody who's interested in
Mm-hmm.
fitness, somebody who, who just is not. I mean, people nowadays, especially people that have 3 or 4 jobs, a lot of people are just physically falling apart, and they don't take care of themselves, and they're just overworked, and they're stressed, and they're emotionally, unavailable.
Yeah.
And, and I hate to be, pick on people like that. I'm fortunate that I have this job where I can kind of, participate, kind of just stay there and not work as hard. I'm not on a ladder or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm not washing dishes. I'm not working in a restaurant. I'm not doing things that are just taking every ounce of energy out of me. I'm doing something that, I kind of use my brain to some extent a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just keep people, moving forward. And so I have enough time to stay healthy and do things like that. Some people don't. And, it's one of those things.
Yeah. Lifestyle.
What body part turns you on the most and why?
It's their brain.
The what? The brain?
The
Yeah.
brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Smart
Yeah.
answer.
You thought you were going to get a real sexy answer,
Yeah, yeah.
didn't you, Lindsay?
so hard
Should I
to
just
spice
set
it
you
up.
up?
Yeah. I'm not going to go for
I
that.
was like not satisfied with these vanilla ones.
I'm doing this for too long.
We
so,
gotta get the juice out.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us here at the Meat Market, and thank you so much, Steve. If you want to go out on a date with Steve, send us a DM at Meat Market Podcast or go to our website, themeatmarketpodcast.com. And thank you so much to our amazing sponsor, Tactical Tax Strategies. If you want to preserve your wealth, this tax season and keep more in your wallet, you have to go to Tactical Tax Strategies. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week at the meat market. Oh my God, I just totally got catfished. He looks absolutely nothing like his picture.
So I found out the guy that I've been dating is married with kids. His wife just reached out to me.